Today on Blissfully Tea Drunk with.
Oh, hey! So for this episode, we are across so many different time zones. I'm glad that we're able to get everyone together. And Ethan is here again with our musical residency. Alrighty. Thank you, Ethan. Alrighty, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ethan. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. We're good now. Thanks. Okay, alrighty. He'll be back on later. I just like having Ethan on. Isn't he great? What fun energy he has. Anyways, welcome for tonight's show. Tonight we have Longleaf Tea. They're over in Mississippi, and we're going to talk to them about drinking and growing Mississippi-grown tea. But after that, we are going to have an amazing panel on of three incredible people that we're going to talk about one of the largest horror stories and issues in the world of tea. I can't wait to have this discussion. It's probably the most serious discussion we've had on the show. But before we roll over to it, let's check out Longleaf Tea and talk about Mississippi tea. Oh. I'm going to change shirts and get this dry. Then we'll talk to Longleaf Tea. Let's hop over. Alrighty, so here with me today, I have Thomas. He's with Longleaf Tea Company over in Mississippi. So you guys are Longleaf Tea. You grow Mississippi-grown tea in Mississippi. I keep saying Mississippi, but you grow tea there. It's a farm that it's not like it's relatively like brand new, but you just started doing tea recently because tea plants or tea trees, they need time to harvest. And so you guys this is your second year releasing tea?
That's right. Yeah, we planted our first plants in 2018. Last year was first year to release a batch to the public, and then this year was year 2. That's right.
So starting a tea company, a lot of people think, like a tea shop with flavored blends. But when you say you're opening a tea company, you're actually making the tea itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you remember like the very beginning moments of wanting to launch a tea farm?
I do actually. I was in Shanghai having a conversation. This was 2010, so 12 years ago, and I was having a conversation with a tea shop owner and practicing Mandarin, and she asked me where all the good tea comes from in the U.S. We were talking about the townships that make great tea in China, and I couldn't answer her question. I had no idea where the good tea comes from, and that's what really kicked off the idea 12 years ago.
Wow! And do you remember, because obviously a lot's happened since then, but do you remember from that point to actually planting your first tea plant, what that moment was like?
Well, yeah, so for 7 years I researched, and then for about 3 years I tried to grow tea and killed it over and over again. And then in 2018, we moved back to Mississippi, my wife and I and kids, and with some help of another great tea company, Great Mississippi Tea Company. They're about an hour and a half away from us. They were great helpers, and we put our first plants in the ground. And it was both scary and super exciting just to see, from that idea 12 years ago to let's rock and roll, let's do this.
So not only in 2 years, I feel like because tea is one of the oldest industries or the oldest industry in human civilization, but in the world of tea, things are very slow moving. Like the industry is slow to change, move, progress. But that's not the case for you guys. It's like you guys exploded overnight. You sold out your first batch of tea relatively quickly. You were on HGTV almost right after. Did you expect everything to just go over so well, so quick, right out of the floodgate?
No. So when we first planted our first block of tea plants, it was about 1,000 plants. And my wife and I were thinking, we've planted way too many. No one's ever going to drink this much tea from us. Now, I wish we had planted 10 times that much. I mean, Cody, you've been to the farm. There's a good number of plants, but we wish we had planted more because, you mentioned it, from HGTV, from the show Hometown, to just a lot of excitement around American-grown tea. We cannot meet demand. Every batch that we put out sells out in about 90 minutes.
90 minutes. And that's normal. For most people, that's not normal, but that's normal for you guys. Most businesses don't do that quick.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We're getting used to it, but we wish that we had a lot more tea to provide to customers. It's hard to have to let people know that we're completely sold out again.
Well, as far as like what you said, I did get to visit your tea farm. So I'm going to throw up a few photos over us right now. So this is a photo of you and I. I don't know why I look like I was. I really did not know how to style that trip. I looked horrendous, but because you showed up, I showed up wearing just like a big Patagonia t-shirt and with tube socks, and I'm like, we're here for the day, and then you show up like all dressed up, and I'm like, I did not prepare. I mean, I think you came from work that day and made an exception to come out there.
Yeah, I probably had my uniform on, my good old button down and slacks. So yeah.
I was like, oh no, like I don't belong. But as far as going to the tea farm, I'm going to throw up a few more photos too. But that was really fascinating because I've never seen a tea farm in person before, but that was here in our backyard, like in America, so to speak. What's the reaction of people who see a tea farm in person for the first time?
Yeah, probably similar to yours. Like just like a lot of aha moments. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea all of these processes were required to provide that cup of tea that I drink every morning. Letting people see behind the scenes on processing, on farming, on harvesting. Everything we do is hand plucked right now. It's surprising and kind of exciting for a lot of people to visit.
So I guess because of HGTV, that's like national television. Did you guys see an influx of people visit the tea farm after your episode aired?
Yeah, absolutely. So every Friday, so we have a tour and tasting every Friday, and we have 12 to 15 people, and every single Friday from May until this past Friday has been sold out, with visitors coming to do a tasting of the teas and tour of the tea farm.
Wow. So for people who don't know, you're known for HGTV and tea, but for people in the world of tea who don't know you were on HGTV, they did a remodel of the home that you serve tea in and that the house that sits on the farm. What was that process like?
Yeah, so what they did, it's a family farmhouse that's been in my wife's family for 6 generations, and they renovated it to make it into really a gathering place for the community and to do tea tastings. The process was awesome. So Aaron and Ben Napier led the renovation, and you've seen it. They did a wonderful job. It was beautiful. They brought back a lot of the character from when it was built 100 years ago. It's great space, great lighting, beautiful furniture. So we couldn't be prouder of it, and we're really excited to share it with others.
So as far as being in the world of tea, so I'm going to throw up a photo of where the tea process happens. So this is like a typical room where tea is processed, and you have the bamboo mats. People can't you can't just like buy tea processing machines like on Amazon.
Right.
What type of hurdle did you go over to obtain the machinery to be able to make tea? Was that easy or?
No, it wasn't easy. There's a number of, here's the great thing about the tea industry in the US is that we all help each other out. There's none of this like cutthroat competition. It's all like one big family and community, and we're all helping each other out. So about 3 or 4 different tea farms and processing facilities all went in together, and we bought a lot of equipment, and we shared the shipping costs of a container crate and brought it over and brought it through the port of New Orleans, and then split up the equipment once we brought it into the US. So it was difficult to find the equipment and to source it, but when you're working with a bunch of other people, things just get easier.
So as far as being in the tea industry, you were in China for quite some time. So when making tea and doing tea, I could just say personally that when drinking your tea, that you can taste this is not just someone who's out here to make like a tourist attraction or someone out here just to make $1. Like I can tell when drinking your tea that you're very passionate about tea and tea culture, and that's something that is not often found like that often, especially over here. So for people who want to get into tea, but they have a passion for it, they want to do it the right way. What advice would you give to people who want to do it, especially the right way?
Yeah, and when we say get into tea, Cody, I'm going to start with, I'm guessing you're saying like get into maybe growing or making or processing. And
Correct.
Yeah, so there are choices all along that the pathway, and the choices can be for something the more commodity and maybe more touristy versus something that is higher quality. So the choices about the tea plants you use, the way you farm it, the processing equipment, the way you harvest, all of that matters, and all of that has a big impact on the final product. I'm completely obsessed with producing something really high quality to the point where I'm never happy with any batch that I ever make. Even if you and all the others are saying, Thomas, this is such an excellent green tea, I would be stressing out because I'm tasting little things that I want to adjust on the next batch. And so I'm constantly trying to make it better and better and better.
Oh, I understand. It's like when watching my show. I hate it. I'm my worst critic. It's like, oh, that's a terrible episode. Why did I put it together?
Yeah.
I get it. So a lot of people, last question before we move on to our panel. A lot of people now are very concerned about fair trade and making sure that when they buy something, it comes straight from the source, that people are treated fairly. So I have to ask, when you're harvesting tea, are you treated fairly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, of course, the family is treated fairly. Now, my kids may disagree. So, Cody, don't ask my kids. I hope they can't hear in the background because they would say, no, Dad doesn't pay us enough, or Dad makes us stop fishing and pick tea leaves. But no, it's a family affair, and we have a blast out there. I mean, you've seen it. It's great.
Oh, this just in. This just in. Breaking news. Longleaf Tea is backed by child labor. No. Unpaid child labor.
Well, unfortunately, both my kids are good negotiators, and they get paid probably more than they should. So
I'm teasing. I'm pulling your leg now. Well, we're gonna move on to our panel, and now you can say you've been on an amazing talk show that's syndicated. That's not HGTV. I'm not conceited. I try. maybe a little conceited. I don't know. Well, alrighty, Thomas, thank you for being on. I really appreciate you being here, and we're going to move on to our panel. But first, I have a couple of announcements to make.
Was that not fun or what? Seeing Thomas in person really was one of the highlights of my year. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to tonight's panel. We're going to talk to Teawala, Serene Tea, and HoYum Tea, and we're going to talk about one of the biggest problems in the world of tea and how we can hopefully stop this madness moving forward. Let's get them on.
Hi, so welcome. So you three are so incredible, and I'm glad that you're the next panel on the show because there's so much we have to talk about here. So for this panel, we have three incredible people here. We're going to start to my right, who is Mona T. So let's start with you. Hopefully, after recording, the orientation's the same. Like, hi.
Hi, Cody.
Right. So tell everyone in the audience like who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mona. I'm Mona from Teawala. Thanks for having me on, Cody, and good to see you guys, Pink and Rainy. So I, much like Rainy and Pink, I source teas direct from farms and then share them with tea drinkers like you guys. And part of my mission is also sharing the story behind each cup.
And, alrighty, and next below her we have Pink, who is HoYum Tea.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Pink. I'm from Hong Kong. Thank you, Cody, for organizing this amazing event for connecting three girls together. So I'm also like Mona. I source tea directly from the farmers. This year we already been to India to source tea, and now I'm currently in Thailand to source directly to the small farm as well. So. Yeah.
Perfect. And to the left of Pink, we have Serene Tea, who is Rainy. So Rainy, hi.
Hi, Cody. Hi, everyone. So my name is Rainy, and I'm the owner of Serene Tea. And thank you for having me here and being able to connect with Mona and Pink. It's an amazing show. And so what I do primarily is pretty similar to Mona and Pink. I try to go to farms to source tea directly every year when I get a chance, primarily in China. But then this year I expanded the sourcing into Thailand. And so hopefully in the future, I'll be able to continue this expansion into other, amazing tea production countries or areas.
But Rainey, you're not also just someone who's in tea. Now you're getting into teaware.
Yes. So I have exciting. I have always been very into tea wares. As you can see, I have like a lot of stuff like on my table. In the past, I primarily sourced teaware directly from like small artists in Jingdezhen in China. But then starting from this year, I start to getting into pottery myself. So I start to like create some of the teaware lines, hopefully like in the this year, and hopefully I will launch maybe like a couple lines by the end of this year, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a learning process. It's a long process.
When you do launch your homemade teaware, just because it's made by you, I will refresh like the Jesus out of your webpage, ready to buy something that you made. I'll just be waiting.
You're so kind. You're super sweet.
But you've learned relatively quickly, because I've seen updated and progress photos that you've posted, and I guess it's a right brain, left brain thing that I don't have, because I've tried pottery and it didn't catch on. But the way that you caught on so quickly, it's like, how did you pick that up? It almost seemed like overnight it clicked and you got it.
Oh my God, no, you're too kind. I think I think I actually have to give that credit to Derek from One River Tea, because he was actually the one that got me started. I know. Hi, Derek. Who's not here, but hi. So he was the first one that got me started. And I think maybe because he's amazingly talented at teaching. So the way that he taught me made me feel, at the time, made me feel like it was really easy. And he taught me all the fundamental skills. And so which later, I always kind of like kept those tips in mind, and I just applied those. And then after that, I also, I took some proper lessons, from like proper, teachers, like pottery masters. And so that helped. Yeah, I think you just need to keep going, you just need to keep practicing, and then eventually you will be able to do it. Yeah.
Rainey, I love the one you did with the whale too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for like Seattle. I thought it was so nice.
Yeah.
And let's pull up a photo of that too. Here's a photo of the one that she's referencing.
Ta-da!
Right. So that's
Amazing.
incredible that you can, exactly. And Pink, I have to bounce over to you, because you not only source teas, but you do a tea club, but you're not just any other tea club. There's not a tea club quite like you out there, because your tea club's accompanied by a podcast, which I absolutely love. I've actually listened to all of it now. It took me a minute to catch up, but I've listened to all of it. And your tea club, I have to say, I love the name of it. It smells like tea spirit.
I love that.
Yeah,
isn't that
really
great? Like,
Right. Yeah.
like, especially because every time I see this, I just think about how she did it. But yeah, so, but this is great. I just, I took part in your tea club twice. One of them was like something after the fact, but like, so I have to ask you, you don't go to tea places and get tea that's typically known in those places. So for instance, if you were to go to Darjeeling, you're not going to go to Darjeeling and get a typical Darjeeling tea.
Wow, that's
because you
all, I think,
because you will go and you will take talk to farmers and you'll push them to experiment and try new things.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think since this year we started to, sourcing tea outside China. Before COVID, it's like Rainy, we constantly go to China to source tea. But the fact that China is still closed, so we started to expand our sources. So India, of course, is one of the top of our list, and our goal is very clear. We are targeting farmers, small scale tea farms that making Chinese style tea. So basically, the tea is good for kombucha, and apparently the small scale farmers, they don't have enough of knowledge and experience to make this kind of tea. So all the tea that we do during the trip is very experimental. And also we offer them knowledge exchange from our Chinese farmer to make the better tea. So all the tea that you try is exclusive for us. And in the coming next club, it's going to have the same thing as well.
So it's great because on your tea club, you get to experience. I remember drinking, I have them written down here. There was an Assam green tea that you guys had, and this one stuck out in my mind, that was made like a shangpuar. And that was something I thought was unique. And there's another one that was, it was a yellow tea, and it took more than like a month to get together. But these aren't teas that are like, the type of teas that you release are, like you said, they're experimental, and you can, and for the fact that they're straight from the farm, straight to your club, you can't get some of these things anywhere and probably ever again. Like, this is truly unique.
Yes, exactly.
So when experimenting, but when experimenting and you go out and you push to try new things, how do those conversations take place? What do those conversations look like?
First of all, as far as we know, in India, tea industry, it's very commercial, especially in Darjeeling. And most of the tea that for export, like for local people, they don't drink this kind of tea. They mostly drink chai and other commercial tea, or tea bags or something like that. So especially that we're targeting small scale farms that they want to do things better. They want to be something unique, and they want to be improved. Eventually they're going to help the life better financially. So in order to be commercial or like compete with the big company in India, instead they want to develop the specialty tea. That's how I call it. Gongfu they call it specialty tea industry, and expand and make the revolution. And we believe that in the next couple of years, there will be more and more tea farms is going to do things like this way. And we are very, very happy that, we are a part of it. So, yeah.
And Mona, you kind of do something similar because you go to places in tea that are not just like typical, or not in the mainstream quite yet. There are, from my understanding, there are places in tea that are not, they're becoming more popular with the mainstream, but they're getting there. And you'll go to those places and try different things and help push other things out. So when you're, in some sense or another, you're also going against the grain for what's really popular.
Yeah. So recently I also was in Thailand. Actually, all three of us, so Rainy, myself, and Pink, who's now there, we're all up in like Mesalong and Doi Wawi regions. And that was a really amazing opportunity, amazing experience. It's one of the lesser sort of developed regions for tea. Games, so their history is probably only around 50 years. But within that 50 years, they've really developed a lot of great tea. And so it was really awesome to see that, and then also shine light on that to people watching. Just really great to share that. And I have also been to the more established regions, but I think there's something just all the more special, like going to visit the small guys and trying to spread the word about all the amazing things that they do. So I try to do a mix of both, I guess. And sometimes I'll go to a region that's more established, and then I'll end up finding a tea that maybe locals drink, or something that's not that well known outside of China or whichever region it is. And I try to, if I really like the tea, I mean, that's kind of my sourcing philosophy. If I like the tea, then I just want to share it with people. So sometimes it'll be like a pleasant surprise, like the Shai Hong sun-dried black tea. Like I went to Yunnan expecting to source pu'er, and then I really loved the Shaihong, and ended up kind of bringing that. So yeah, it's a definitely a mixed bag, and I always like finding things that are a little bit off the beaten path.
But it's something that, like you said, finding the smaller guy. That's something that Serene Tea, Rainy, that you also do. You also go to the smaller guy.
Right, and I feel like I can relate to Pink and Mona very well. So kind of just going off what they have covered, I feel like going off to smaller people, like kind of like the underdogs, like helps people discovering, right, something new. For example, when I was in Thailand, and after I did a couple lives, there were people messaging me on Instagram asking me, just kind of commenting, saying that they had no idea Thai teas are good, or like they are actually like good quality loose leaf Thai teas. Because most of the time when they think about Thai teas, they think about, you know, like the bubble tea Thai tea.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so but then like I also very much agree with Mona. Like sometimes even if you go to source the mainstream teas, you might end up finding something that surprises you. You may end up finding like a family that's very small, and besides producing the mainstream stuff, they also produce something like on the side, like more experimental, that they don't always show to everyone, but only the people that are kind of like curious and ask them about it. So when you find something like that, it becomes a really nice surprise. So when I was in Thailand, I actually went there hoping to find the sun dried black tea. So opposite.
Yeah.
Right. I was actually hoping to find the sun dried black tea, and I ended up finding a ruby black tea that is quite different. Well, it is from the ruby black tea cultivar of Taiwan, but then like taste is very different. So I thought that was a really nice surprise. Yeah.
Love that.
And
yeah,
especially, so something that you kind of, I wouldn't say have stirred up, because there's some things in the industry that are like kind of stay in our history unfortunately. And one of those things are you coming across somebody who acted kind of poorly, but they represent maybe a larger company, someone else in tea. They have a reach regardless of size. And they acted poorly and represented the tea community in such a way that you shared your experience on Instagram Live. You've been in Fresh Cup magazine. We've even talked about it extensively because I was trying to write the report on it. And but it's just a topic that I think should be talked about more often, because the way that as an American and someone who is white, there has to be a responsibility of saying, if we're going to go somewhere and source tea from a place, you can't just tell your consumer base and can't tell your audience that, oh, it was fair trade, we did right by the farmer. You can't just say that and believe it, because that's kind of like the lazy way of taking it. There's got to be more responsibility for accountability for things. And the way you came across this issue is something that may be more common than not. So I'm going to try and paraphrase the situation briefly. It'd be fun to go more into detail, but for time limiting on the show, the idea was you went to a tea farm.
Right.
And when going to this tea farm, you built a relationship with these farmers.
Right.
And you're ready to make a purchase from these farmers to sell tea yourself.
Yes.
And before the deal was truly finalized, it came out that they were selling a different type of tea to a different company, not related to anything you were doing.
Right.
And in doing so, the person who runs that company, who is buying a different tea from them, stopped and found out that you were at this farm on social media just by one post. It was only one post, and it was a very vague post too. You weren't like, here I am. It was very vague. It was nothing you announced. And they reached out to these farmers and pressured and told these farmers to not sell to you, or else they will pull out all of their business from them and it would collapse the tea farm.
Right.
Is that an accurate kind of overview of what happened?
Yeah, I think you cover most parts of it.
Right.
I guess some smoothie. I mean, like, I feel like there's a lot of information I cannot disclose just
Right.
for the benefits, for protecting the benefits of the farmers. But it happens very much like what you described, and I think the farmers were pressured by this company. And they were feared that by selling smaller amounts teas to me, because I come from a smaller tea company, they would
Right.
lose they may potentially lose a bigger business to the bigger company. And so even though there was no official business contract forged of such a deal
Right.
between that bigger company and the farmers themselves, they felt obliged to follow this verbal agreement, let's say. Yeah, and we didn't, because I approached to these farmers myself. So I didn't find them through any connection. I found them. I found them like totally in like a serendipitous way, and I connected to them before going to Thailand. And my goal of going to Thailand at the beginning was actually primarily for visiting them and their farm. And everything went really well. But then, like right at the moment that we're going to purchase tea, they told me, what happened. And I think the person from that bigger American company probably, I was completely not aware of this. Apparently he has been following my Instagram account, and so my guess is that he probably saw my post and he saw my life. And so he went behind my back. I actually would have appreciated a lot more if he had come to me and talk about this with me, directly, instead of going around me and
But this also creates an issue of like gatekeeping in its ugliest form. Like, because not only does this person go singles out a farm and says, here is money. And like in the tea industry, it's common to do a one-time purchase. If not, then if you're going to buy from a tea farm for multiple years, you have a contract of some sort of agreement. But it's not like he really had a formal agreement with these farmers. So it's like they went to this farm, kind of took it over as their own, and put them and strangled them into being in complete control over this farm because they made them dependent on them. And that is, but meanwhile, that company, which, is typical for a lot of tea people, but post photos of their arm around the tea farmer and plucking tea with the tea farmer. And meanwhile, behind that false message being spread of like, oh, we're great with the tea farm, my friend, the tea farmer here, this imaginary tea farmer on my arm. but in reality, they pretty much singled someone out like a vulture and inadvertently kind of like blackmailed them into giving them their business, or else they'll pull out and their farms are ruined forever. And that's really surprising. That's really shocking, because I don't think when people see fair trade, they don't know that that's happening in the background.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you. And I think this is the part that came shocking to me the most. And which is why right after what happened, I reached out to Mona, I reached out to Derek, and they were giving me a lot of great advice of how to, potentially how we can combat this behavior altogether. Yeah. And of course, Mona and I, and especially Mona, she did a lot of great investigation work. She dug into the company's background, exchanging information with me. We're talking about it. And she found a lot about, how this company portrayed themselves, on their website, how they source ethically, how they emphasize on, building a relationship with the farmers, and also how they primarily source organic teas. And organic, there's a whole different story for the organic part. But essentially, the question that by the end of it that we raise is that how do we know? It's kind of what you said.
Right.
How do we ever really know what a company portrays itself is exactly what it is like in real life? That part is really difficult. Yeah. And especially in, sorry.
No, you're good. I want to transition this over to Mona. So Mona, when the things like this happen, it's kind of my understanding, and Pink, you can chime in on this too. Farmers in China have an attitude of "you need me," you know, whereas maybe farmers in other countries have this attitude of "I need you" because they're maybe not as developed as China, or maybe more poor than China in some aspect or another. Would that be like, how accurate would that be to say
Yeah.
that?
I definitely think so. Like in the more established regions, they have
Right.
a lot of selling power. They've got a lot of customers waiting to purchase. I mean, this is a general statement, but whereas in some of the more developing countries, developing in terms of within the context of tea, where they are searching for customers, there's definitely like a power differential. And I think this is an example of a big company who's perfectly aware of their buying power and kind of taking advantage of the situation where they know that farm is kind of dependent on them, that they know the farm is vulnerable, and taking advantage of that situation. And then on the outside, pretending through their marketing that, they have this great relationship and they really care about the farmers so that they, can get more sales essentially. So I think, the whole thing is just really tragic. And when I saw Rainey posting that, like, she had spent days, spent time, like, I don't know, multiple days with this farm, just like recording everything and just having a great time. So it's just really sad to me when I saw the message that she said for some other reason, due to some third party, she wasn't able to work with them. So I messaged her and I was like, are you okay? What happened? If you're comfortable to share, like, what happened?
But
and then
when you go to other places, though, that's not, especially in China, that type of behavior is not typical, is it? Because I wouldn't imagine. Is there like a different attitude between vendor and seller and farmer in China compared to other places? Is there like a different type of dynamic? Because
maybe I
Pink,
can
go
add
ahead.
something
Yeah.
So actually, first of all, I'm quite surprised that you guys are mentioning about this, because when I just heard, this fact was very, very shocking for me. But by the way, I think compared to the Chinese farmers, I think it's a totally completely different story from my personal experience. Because first of all, I think in order to make business with people, from my Asian perspective, I prefer knowing the person first. Like we observe, the personality. Can we build this relationship with them? Can we build trust with them? Can we, do something together? It's not just like just not like a business relationship, because it's not sustainable enough for us.
It's not just a transaction, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, when I just heard about this news in the Macedon, I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do, I discussed with Nani.
Right.
So apparently, these two girls are already facing this struggle and difficulties. What are we going to do? Are we going to pack our things and just leave? Like what's the next step? And we realize that we kind of forget about our goal. Just like what we have done in India. We are coming to research and doing the exchange knowledge with the farmers. We are building the trust. If they are like some of the farmers, they are afraid to sell them tea to us, it's okay. We respect them. It's their choice. But what we can do, what we can offer, it's that we can choose to work with other people and doing something new. And this is really up to them. Like we are giving the open option to them. And I think this is the best we can offer. And compared to the Chinese farmers, like, of course, they have much more experience. They know how to make tea, and we already built a trust relationship. So, like speaking of the fair trade, I think it's kind of like you don't need to working with Chinese people, it's like you don't need to say it out loud because we already built a trust. So what we have done, it's already fair and it's like organic, you know.
It's like the
what we
system's
have
already
done time-
established.
Exactly. It's like for sure, Mona and Rainy already know that the terroir in Thailand is completely natural and organic. But do you need to really like stand is organic? Because we already haven't seen in our eyes, you know, it's go through so many histories, and we know that the terroir it's really, really good. It's amazing. So it's like, do we have to do it? You know, it's kind of good.
And another part of this, though, is especially in America, it's great that you are all on foot on the ground doing that work of doing something that's right by the farmers, whereas you trade knowledge, or you're respectful by respecting their boundaries. If they're not comfortable with something, you're not going to pressure them. And this is just something that feels so basic and so common. Do you and I'll ask this question, and if we can keep it brief because we're running low on time. But for someone, the majority of tea drinkers in America, you could say, are just like white. They're here. There's a certain kind of privilege that comes with being white, and it's really hard to know that what you're doing is right and what you're doing is wrong, because you could be doing something that you think is right, but could actually be harmful to someone in the background that you don't know. And for someone who is white, or someone who's in America, the Western society, what can you do to make sure that your choices in business are helpful and not necessarily harmful? Is there any way to gauge that?
Well, I think it's kind of like a human chemistry, you know.
Right.
I think the way just to see them how to make the tea already tells a lot, you know. How they treat the tea, how they use the tools. Are they, you know, willing to, you know, learn more, or are they want to, you know, share more about the stories and listening to us? You know, it's very interactive for us. And for sure, Rainy and Mona can share more experience, you know, when they were there. And I think that's about it. This is the most direct thing to see,
Right.
how they treat these things.
Yeah, I think it is really difficult. Like, you know, you buy tea and you're just not sure like what goes on behind the scenes, right? But I think, kind of going along with what Pink said, like, if you feel like you trust the character of the person bringing, you know, the leader of that brand bringing the tea, that person takes time to share more behind the tea and puts the focus more on the farmers, and kind of sharing their story. I think that helps, because
Transparency, essentially.
Yeah, transparency, and it's just about like character and ethics as well, because, you know, if it's very holistic, right? So this person that we were talking about, if, for example, they don't treat their employees well,
Right.
they probably also don't treat their suppliers and the farmers that they work with well. So I think just having a holistic perspective, like if you are able to try to learn a little bit more about the brand owner, and if you feel like you can trust or that you like the brand owner, I would hope that would translate to teas that are sourced ethically.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I think Mona and Pink have covered a lot. I think the word holistic really, you know, just it's like the right way to describe, you know, like the situation. Details, I always say, like, details kind of betray who you are or what the real situation is if you're doing sort of like an investigation work. So kind of just like look into the details and read maybe blogs, look into the story behind the owner, or sometimes just reach out. You know, like I feel like if you reach out to small business owners, especially small business owners, and if they really care about what they do, they will always respond in a manner that you can relate. Like it's more relatable and they share more information. And I think that's kind of like the biggest difference between small business owners versus bigger, like more business oriented corporation type of business in general. Yeah, so just kind of like a little extension. Yeah.
So if you see the owner or a leader of a tea company and they have their arm around the farmer, and that's where transparency stops. Keep asking questions, essentially. If there's no more background past that.
Right. Yeah, if it's just like a couple photos, you know, it could just be marketing.
So I want to touch on something a little bit more political just for the last few minutes of the show. Or for this panel at least. I don't know this relates to Pink very well because it is, I'm asking like more of the American side of this question, but because Serene Tea, you're in America, but you're also like Mona, you've also been back and forth in America, and there has been an issue over the last, I want to say like maybe 4 years. Don't know what could have happened over the 4 years where there's an issue where it's come out where Asian hate has been a real issue. I mean, it's always been an issue, but it's gotten to the point where it really should not be ignored and can't be ignored anymore. It shouldn't have been ignored this much. It should have never gotten to this point. So what can people, because there's now a stigma, like with COVID, tied to drinking tea, and there's still a stigma tied to even Vietnamese teas. Like, oh, I won't drink that. Agent Orange is in it. This is stuff that, in my experience, is a very American narrative, and is a very like white person narrative. How can people who don't really follow that narrative, who want to be supportive, to help take that narrative away from that? What can people do to help be more supportive and help change that narrative moving forward? Because there's a lot of racially negative, there's a lot of like racist negativity surrounding certain things in tea, and it's very American based, and it's very just outrageous that it's even there.
Right. That's a really great question. It's a lot to unpack.
Sorry, that's a big question.
No, it's challenging, but it's an important question. Rainey, do you have any input?
Yeah, it's a very deep question. My brain is literally going crazy. Tea helps. I think it's important to maybe like bring some of the, I mean, like maybe change people's mentality by bringing, I don't know, like maybe more original stories, you know, like or maybe we as Asian business owners, you know, especially as women, maybe we should also like change the way that we work, or maybe provide more authentic content. It's hard
maybe
to say.
I guess I can jump in as well. Right, I was thinking about like more and more Asian owned businesses. And I think I'm seeing that in the last few years as well within the realm of tea, which is a really positive sign. So I think that that's one way. And I also think like kind of allyship. So, you know, between. Exactly. So people who can kind of build the bridge between, because it's just about ignorance, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if there's that somebody in the middle that people will trust and listen to, that then shares positively about tea or about Asian culture, then I think that can help to decrease the negative tension and get rid of the ignorance.
And
a lot of this. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say, like, adding kind of on top of what Mona just said, because she made a really good point. I also feel like there are a lot of just take tea, you know, in the realm of tea. There are some bigger companies that are ran by both, you know, like American and an Asian. Like there's a partnership there, right? Sometimes it might be a couple, sometimes it might be, you know, just pure partnership, business partnership. And I feel like when your business grows bigger, you should have more sense of responsibility to bring like maybe better content or more authentic content into the business, like spread words. So kind of like Cody, you mentioned earlier, like people were raging against Vietnamese teas, and there's nothing wrong with that, with Vietnamese teas. It's ignorance. And so if you are a bigger business owner, and you attract more audiences, I feel like you should develop that sense of responsibility to do it right, to correct wrong, right, to spread the good deeds. And I feel like when more people start doing that, especially like Asian business owners, maybe that will help as well.
Yeah, use your platform and your voice, definitely.
Right.
I think it takes a lot of people too to use their voice to say, what can I do for tea, not what can it do for me?
Mm-hmm.
I think changing the narrative of what can I do for it is where it should be going. There's too much of an attitude of what can it do for me that's here, and nothing good would ever come out of that.
Right. Sustainability. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been such a fun discussion, important discussion. I know we talked lightly on a lot of topics. We are out of time, but there's so much more that needs to be unpacked here and talked about, and so much more work that needs to be done. I know I kind of put you all on the spot with some of these topics. I know they're not easy either, but at the end of the day, we still need to move forward. Hopefully this episode specifically can resonate the right tune with someone. Maybe it's the owner of said companies watching. Maybe something can be learned. Maybe it's not too late to change people to do better and to not keep their ways. So I really want to thank Teawala, Ramona of Teawala, for jumping on. This has been so much fun. And also Pink of HoYum Tea. And also want to thank you, Serene Tea. This has been so much fun. I'm glad you're here, Rainey. I'm glad all of y'all are here. This has been great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Cody.
Yeah.
And after
It was really
navigating
fun.
4
Thank
different
you.
time zones. All right, so next, let's check into our P.O. box and see what's sent where. There's a box over there full of mail. Let's go grab it.
All right, so today, before we get to tonight's fan mail, I'm going to go see if the shirt is dry and switch out real quick. Due to movie magic, I will switch out and be right back. Alrighty, and here I am back due to movie magic. Or is it just lazy editing? Anyways, let's go on to fan mail. So, you've been sending fan mail to this here P.O. box just for the talk show, and I have a couple of things from you guys. I've already preemptively opened them, so we can just get on to reading them on the show. Alrighty, here's the first one from a Danielle. Dear Cody, I saw in the last episode it was your birthday. Happy belated birthday. But it wasn't my birthday then. I was very clear. My birthday was long before. I don't understand. This is... stop sending birthday cards. I appreciate that you're wanting to celebrate my birthday, but stop sending birthday cards, please. It's not my birthday. Anyways, we're going to move on to this. We got a Halloween postcard, and it says, Dear Cody, I have been watching you since season 1. Hey! I've been on it since season 1! And I made that same joke last time. I really enjoyed season 2. Signed. That's it. What about the season 3 and this one? Anyways, so we're going to move on. I also got a box. This came from Florida. So this box already opened. We're going to unwrap it. I wonder if this is my first box on the show. Hey! Is it in the bag? Target. I love Target. I go into Target to buy one thing and leave spending over 100 each time. I don't get it. From Taylor. It's just a bag and a box. Why'd you spend $8 in postage to send me a bag? I don't get it. Anyways, if you wanna I'm ignoring this. Anyways, if you want to send fan mail to the show and want it open and read out loud here, send it to this here P.O. Box address for next week's episode. Alrighty, Ethan's been waiting. Let's check over there and get him back on. Alrighty. Alright, now we're back with Ethan to play us off. Thanks for waiting this entire episode for us. I know you've been waiting for a bit, but thank you for hanging out. Alrighty, thank you for playing us off.